What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday AM coffee. Going to do a few minutes on CJ Mosley. Going to do a few minutes on Garrett Wilson and Jets all-time receiver rankings, both related to Discord questions we received. If you want your Discord questions discussed, sign up for War Room and upgrade to War Room and get into that Discord, which is always an adventure. And as a reminder, badlandstoj.com to get your live show tickets August 23rd. Get them now. We're going to have to keep poking until you go get them. So I'm talking to you, the person who is listening to this, who has not gotten one yet. Just come hang out. It's going to be great. We're going to have all of us from Badlands and a bunch of other Jet fans packed into that bar, chopping it up. So badlandstoj.com for tickets. Before I get into discussing Mosley and Garrett, quick reminder that Sunday AM Coffee is brought to you by our good friends from Magic Mind. I use it as my productivity hack every single day. I have it with my coffee in the morning. Great natural ingredients, tastes good. I pop it in the fridge, drink it cold, goes right down with the coffee. Helps as the season gets closer and the volume of podcasts picks up. Get your focus right away, first thing. And, we've been talking about it for a while. I've been having it every day for over a year now, and definitely has a very strong positive impact. And I like mixing it with the coffee and with breakfast. Sometimes people have it in the afternoon for that little midday boost. For me, I enjoy it in the morning. And if you listen and follow Badlands and use code JETS20, you will get 20% off your next order. I'll also throw a link in the bio that you can utilize. So that is Magic Mind for your mental boost shot, your productivity hack. Give it a try today with JETS20 as your code for 20% off. All right, CJ Mosley, retired. Long-time Jet, longer than I think, right? Longer than you think of him always as a Raven, and he played for the Ravens for all these years, but kind of ended up splitting his career about 50-50 between the two franchises. A guy who came over on a mammoth contract pre-2019, had an absolutely electric first half, and then unfortunately got banged up. And then, we had the COVID year, kind of mixed some things up. But then was a catalyst in how the Jets went from effectively being the worst defense in football in 2021 to one of the best defenses in football in 2022 and 2023. And then you saw the impact of him not being there last year, a guy who for a long time was really the heart of the defense, the quarterback of the defense. And they felt his impact not being present. And my hope is that now with a year of experience under their belt of not having him out there alongside him, Quincy, Sherwood, the rest of the defense will be adjusted to it and be that much better. One of the biggest impacts that Mosley had here and will be remembered for is being involved in the development of those guys. Quincy Williams was a borderline roster player when the Jets picked him off waiver wires, and he got himself to an all-pro level. Hopefully he's going to get back to that level this year. Sherwood was a college safety, day 3 pick, and just got a fresh new contract, a well-deserved fresh new contract, where you feel good about the Jets' 2 starting linebackers. Got a lot of athleticism. They both learned under Mosley, so they're going to be heady players out there. It's a nice impact to leave behind. And I do wonder if Mosley gets involved with the Jets or the Ravens organization after maybe enjoying a year or so of retirement. I just think with the neck injury, why push it, at his age? You don't want to mess around with something like that. A guy that I think ultimately will be a Hall of Fame player, had that many sort of high caliber all pro seasons and had a strong enough impact across 2 different franchises where I think he'll ultimately get there. And you could debate fairly whether the Jets overpaid on that contract, considering the position he plays and considering some of the time he missed. Ultimately, when you put it in the hierarchy of Jets free agent signings, it's not one that you're going to get too worked up about. It's a bummer that he never got to play on better teams, right? It reminds me a little bit of guys like a guy like Bilal Powell. Mosley at his best was, of course, a better player than Powell, but fan favorites that never got to be a part of playoff games. And with Mosley, the closest he got, I guess, was late 2022 when the Jets were 7-4 and seemed to be headed to the playoffs. And unfortunately, they melted down the stretch. He was just here for a lot of other seasons where, they were 7-10 and just not really in the mix overall. So it would have been cool if he could have had a couple playoff moments like a guy like David Harris or other Jet defenders who got to play in those kind of games. But at his best, was among the best linebacker play we've seen from the Jets, post 2000. There's a couple of really nice moments from Vilma in the early 2000s. Of course, David Harris had a great run. He's a Ring of Honor player. Mosley, was terrific at his peak. And, congrats to him on a great career, great guy on the field, great guy off the field, and wish him best of luck going forward. For Garrett Wilson, the question, the framing I kind of got was, where does he rank already all time in the Jets' top receiver rankings, and where could he end up? And it's just rare for a Jets receiver to start their career with 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. It's especially in recent history, it's just not been the friendliest place for wide receivers. Garrett, it's only been in the league 3 years. He's already 13th all time in Jets receiving yards with 3,249 yards. He's less than 1,000 away from Keyshawn. He's right about 1,000 away from Rob Moore. I would guess, let's say he has 1,100 yards this season. He'll be right there on being 10th with Rich Castor and not too far behind Jericho Cotchery, Mickey Schuler, who was a tight end, and George Sauer. So, if Garrett just keeps doing what he's doing, he will very quickly be like 6th on this list. If he has 2 more 1,000-yard seasons, he's going to be 6th behind Lavernius Coles. He'll be ahead of George Sauer. The current top 5 are Don Maynard, who has the lead by a very comfortable margin with over 11,000. Wesley Walker is second, a little over 8,000. Wayne Corbett's third with 7,300. And that's a little over 8,300 for Wesley Walker. I think I said that wrong. Altoon over 6,600. And then Coles right under 6,000. So, with Garrett, okay, he goes out. He has 1,100 yards. He's at 43. He has 1,100 yards again. He's at 54. You're right there behind Coles. And if he's going to be here long term and he signs a 4 or 5 year contract, it's not a crazy steep climb to get up to 2nd or 3rd on this list very quickly. Now, surpassing Don Maynard, you're going to need another 6 or 7 1,000-yard type seasons, or a couple monster Brandon Marshall type years where you have, 1,400 or 1,500 yards. I think where Garrett needs to catch up a bit, and I think Meeks and Dan did a good job discussing this on Buck the Trend this week, is got to start getting in the end zone more. Only got 14 touchdowns through 3 years, barely averaging 5 a season. Got to go have that year where you have 9, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns. Keyshawn, despite an abbreviated career here, has 31, has a Jet. Castor has 36. Jerome Barkham, who could forget Jerome Barkham, has 40. Schuler at tight end had 37. Maynard had 88. Wesley Walker had 71. So a lot of work to do for Garrett there. Let's hope this guy goes out and gets his new contract and starts it off with a couple 11, 1,200-yard seasons and 9, 10 touchdown seasons. And when that happens, I think we'll be talking about him as a top 5 or 6 receiver in franchise history. Right now, he's a borderline top 10, right? He's 13th overall in receiving yards. The touchdowns aren't quite there yet. I would say without question, he's a top 15 receiver already in franchise history, but he's still got wood to chop to get like, oh yeah, he's definitely top 10. He's still behind our guy Cotchery, who had 4,500 yards and 18 touchdowns here. So Garrett will get there. I don't doubt that he'll be a consistent 1,000-yard receiver. The question for him is, can you be a 1,300, 1,400, 1,500-yard receiver? You get the extra game now. With that yardage total should spike very quickly. And if he has, like I said, 4 or 5 more seasons here, he's going to, at the current pace, he'll be second behind Don Maynard pretty quickly. Don Maynard's stats are, considering the era adjusted, are just absolutely ridiculous. 11,732 yards, 88 touchdowns, 627 receptions. Jesus Christ, man. I think it's interesting kind of looking through this list while I have it up. So Garrett's 13th, Art Powell 14th, Robbie Anderson 15th all time in Jets receiving yards with a little over 3,000, has 20 touchdowns as a Jet. Kind of crazy. You start getting past that, you're into Freeman McNeil as a running back, Dustin Keller at 18th, and Richie Anderson, who was a fullback, and our guy Jeremy Curley 21st on the list. So this isn't a deep roster, but I think Garrett can eventually get up there. I do think he will get a new contract sooner rather than later. I think Sauce, if I had to bet, if they're not going to do them together and do my recommended joint press conference, I would bet that Sauce goes first. I just think the corner market's a little more rigid and a little more set. I don't think Garrett's going to be far behind, and I think the organization and the player are incentivized to make it happen. Does that mean it's going to happen tomorrow? No, I think it will happen at some point in July. Maybe I'm just rooting for it to happen in July. It just feels like there's enough smoke around it now, and I think post-Rodgers, post-Glenn, it feels more likely to happen than not. And it will be fun to watch and see if he can be a guy that scales the list that I just went through and how high up on it he can get. Sauce is a little different when you play corner, but the fact that he's already stacked up 2 first-team All-Pros, and if he could be a part of a couple teams that make the playoffs and have a couple memorable moments in the playoffs and get involved in a few more turnovers, and you get yourself in Jet fans' head the way a guy like, nobody's ever going to be Revis. Revis is a 101, but even a guy like Cromartie, who was a streakier player than he's remembered as. Jet fans understandably love Cromartie. He had some highs and he had some lows while he was here, but when I think of Cromartie, the first thing I always go to is him returning that kick in the Colts playoff game, which wasn't even him playing corner, but was an awesome play that like sneakily won them the game. Also, him being athletic enough to line up and play receiver periodically. He had that crazy interception and run back week 1. I think it was his first game when they played the Ravens on primetime to kick off the season. It was always kind of around the football, and that helps, even if he was getting beat more than you would like to see. A guy who had a fun career. I think Sauce will ultimately prove to be, if you're just talking pure corner, I think Sauce will get to being a better one than him when his whole career is said and done. And let's see these contracts get done, man. Just got some money to spend. You get Mason Taylor signed, you get Sauce and Garrett extended. You are smart and targeted with adding maybe some more defensive line help, maybe a veteran receiver. Let's spend the money within reason. So let's have a good week. Almost 4th of July. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Go get your live show tickets at badlandstoj.com. Go get them right now. We're going to have a fun war room this week. Me, Paul, and Connor are going to do a very special trivia episode that should be out Wednesday. We'll have the normal pod Tuesday. Other guys Monday. TOJ Talks, TOJ Buck the Trend, Flight Plan, all filtering through as they always are here at badlandstoj.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you soon.